Okay, we're back again here at allpointstv.com. And we are glad you're here. And I hope you'll stay tuned for the next hour as we do the program here today on Monday at our regular time at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we'll be off here and out of your hair around 3 o'clock. And those of you who are tuning us in later, we hope you will enjoy the program. I want to, of course, pick up on the discussions that are going on right now all over the nation, all over the world, as this tragedy is beginning to continue to play out. How close we came this past weekend, Saturday. Former President Trump was speaking in Butler, Pennsylvania, and how close it is amazing. It's a miracle. You talking about providence? It's a miracle this man is still alive. All of the persons that have watched the tape, the video of it, all of them are saying that he had just slightly turned a centimeter. If he had really just stood where he normally stands and speaking, this bullet would have hit him right in his head, probably in his temple. And that would have been a fatal shot. This guy that was doing that shooting, Matthew, I think Crook is his name. This guy was shooting to kill. There's one report that the bullet that hit Trump had ricocheted off of someone else. I think that person that was killed. It's still confusing. Some of the pieces of this puzzle have not been put together yet, but I think that one report seems like it's pretty conclusive. Said that the bullet that hit Trump in his right ear, the top of his right ear. They're saying that. That bullet had ricocheted off of someone that was in the front part of the audience. Those that were close to the stage where the president was speaking, and that if that bullet had not ricocheted, it would have had a direct line to the president. And providence, it has to be providential for this to have occurred the way it did, because just a centimeter in either direction, I think that bullet would have killed Donald Trump. This guy was shooting to kill, and all of these claims are being made. That this was a way of. I can't believe some of the things people are saying. If anybody had any doubt about how insane this country has gotten, this is another indication of it. If there's any question to be raised about the mental acuity of the people in this country, then this is kind of like a seal that this country is not really cognizant. They're talking about Joe Biden not being saying he's impaired. What about the perception of the general population? And look what you're getting out of this incident. I couldn't believe CNN, for example. CNN and some of these other networks were saying that they couldn't understand why Donald Trump fell down. Some are saying that he fell down, or that he stumbled trying to get off the stage.
One report said, this week popped up. I had my iPad open, I was sitting beside my chair, and it popped up. Donald Trump says he was shot. Donald Trump says he was shot. Mm-hmm. I guess he also, I don't know, I guess the blood streaming out of his ear. Yeah, I guess that's all an illusion, right?
Yeah, they say he fell down and hurt himself, and they want to explain the blood from the fact that when the president went down, he would have injured himself by falling. it's just, and they want, and we were looking right at the incident. And they played it a number of times over and over again as they were looping it on the newscast, and you kept watching the video replay, trying to figure out, what else could be gleaned from the video taping of it. It is obvious that you hear these pops going on, and you see Trump grabbing at his ear, and he realized he's been hit, and then he ducks down, and you have to give the security that point.
They
At that point they did
what they're supposed to have done. Yeah,
they did what they're supposed to do. Those were the ones that were well trained, but I think that Bongino from formerly of CNN, not CNN, but of Fox. I think that who was on the Secret Service for 12 years. So he would have known the protocols that should have been in place. And I was listening to what he had to say about it, and he was making some very astute comments about what should have happened. There's nowhere in the world, when you look at how close that person was on that roof, and that's almost like if you're looking through a telescope, a scoped rifle. I think the report is that it was an A-15.
Yeah, it's supposed to be some type of AR-15.
AR-15. If you're looking through a scope and the crosshairs, that's almost like a turkey shoot. And they say that it was outside the perimeter, but that's just outside the fencing. The perimeter should have been at least 1,000 feet back, and even further than that. Anytime you have any high rise or roof in the area, that has got to be, that's just part of the protocol. That place has to be locked down, and it wasn't. And there are people that are saying, they kept pointing up there on the roof. They saw this guy climb up on the roof with a rifle, and they kept trying to point out there's a guy going up there on the roof with a rifle. And they were talking about people running around scurrying, didn't know what to do. Well, you know why they didn't know what to do? Because of the DEI. This idea, this person's over the Secret Service. I forget her name. Kimberly somebody. I think it's I had her name. I had written it down because I didn't want to forget this person. I want to see if anyone's gonna be fired. As nobody's ever getting fired from these disasters. It's like it's acceptable and par for the course.
Kimberly A. Cheadle,
Cheadle, that's right.
Cheadle, yeah, Cheatle, yep.
Yeah, Cheadle. Nobody in the administration has called for her to step down. That should have been the first thing that should have happened, because it wasn't just the fact that, I mean, if the person had been inside of the hall, that would have been atrocious. But we're talking about 150 yards. That's just like right on you through a telescope. You can bring that. You could bring that person right in on you, and I don't think I don't think it was any complicity. There's no evidence that there was any any kind of conspiracy where you have persons that were going to stand down and allow it to happen. That doesn't benefit anybody, and I don't think that anyone in their right mind would have fostered such a thing. This is a lone nut, but the culpability of the establishment, yeah, they're going to claim that They were innocent. They weren't there. They didn't have the hand to trigger, and this guy is the one that did it. But they are there in the sense that the guy carried them to the scene in his mind. They were there with all the things this person had registered and the comments had been making over the course of the last 8 years, ever since 2016. And if you go and back it up to the point where Trump is coming down the escalator, that goes back to June of 2015. This man has been targeted ever since he announced that he was a candidate for the presidency of the United States. First of all, he's a laughingstock for making that announcement because he had not gone through the usual procedure through which you become a viable candidate for the presidency. He hadn't served in the military, for example, and he had no resume in the political arena, and there had been no president previous to that, previous to him becoming the president. I don't think you even had a person running with a resume like that, and less known becoming a nominee of the party, a legitimate candidate for the presidency. I don't think we've ever had someone with such a thin resume running for the presidency. This is a TV star. He was over the program called The Apprentice. But they didn't see they had something unusual here, even in that regard, because although he didn't have the usual resume, the talents that he did have and brought into the political arena was something unusual, because none of the ones in the political arena that had gone through the procedure had the kind of resume he had outside of that. So no, he didn't have the political experience, and he had no military experience, but he had something else that made up for those, which, if you call them deficits, something else he had. What he had was a track record. He didn't go into the politics for the reason they had gone into it. This man went into the political arena because because this man, you have to give him credit for this. This man is really a super patriot. There's no question about that. He could be on the 38th floor of Trump Tower, where they got the whole floor to themselves, in this palace, actually going. The White House is no joke, but on the 38th floor of Trump Tower, where he's on one floor, I forget what floor their son is on. He has a floor also in Trump Tower, and they showed a picture. Well, they showed an interview that was done up there by Barbara Walters. You may recall her interviewing Melania Trump when the campaign for Donald Trump was getting a little bit more serious, and there was now more of a likelihood that maybe this will work. Maybe he will become the candidate that does something unusual here that's never been done before. And they were not laughing at this point. It's kind of like maybe this campaign does have a chance to break the glass ceiling in another area. And Donald Trump was no longer a laughing stock, but everybody's now beginning to see maybe there's a potential there after all, because this man is not. This is not your usual. This man has some qualities that many people had recognized long before he talked about running for president. A lot of persons were asking him if he was going to run back in 2006, 2007. This is 10, 11, 12 years before any announcement was made. I don't think Trump even considered. He had been asked this question a number of times. I don't think he had even considered running. His answers were always, well, he didn't want to run, but if nobody else would stand up and no one else proved to be competent enough to do the job, maybe he would in fact consider it. But we didn't think, I didn't think at that time when he's talking to Oprah and some of the others about it, I didn't think he was going to actually announce it, because he was very much about building. This man is a builder, and his talent, of course, we now know he's multi-talented. This man is talented for construction, and all the properties that he has is an indication of that. Properties in many different countries. And how many properties has he developed in New York? He's a cash cow in Florida. Look at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, and they're trying to say that place is worth $18 million. That the land in that area, without any structure on it, is $200 million. And you look at Mar-a-Lago in how that is structured. If there's not a property worth at least $200 and a half million dollars easily, this is not some lightweight structure. And then all the things around it, the land itself is worth probably about $200 million. And then you put this structure on it that has been, I think that was a place for was that the Kellogg family that owned that, some company, I think it's one of the cereal companies, I think it's Kellogg, owned that, and Trump took it and expanded it and developed it to now is one of the premier properties in the country, in Florida and so on, and in the country. I don't think I look at that real estate that Trump owns in different parts of the United States, and also in Ireland. Got a golf course in many of the different locations. The man has a golden touch. He could very well have simply stayed on the sideline and continue to see the country floundering, which is what it was doing, and just simply understood that he had his power, but that's not the kind of person that he is. And I think Donald Trump has shown that he's a patriot. Once you look at that video after Trump had gotten, after he realized he's been wounded, and they covered him up and were talking on their walkie-talkies and through the earpieces. They're listening to the commands, and they don't move the president, which of course was the right thing to do, because you don't know because you have to understand that they don't know. They don't have all the information yet about, is this a single shooter, or is this a conspiracy where there are other gunmen? And so they finally, after a period of time, and they're all around Trump, they're over him. There's one guy that you see holding his arm up at some parts of because Trump wanted to come up there and show his defiance. I mean, this man is something we have not seen before. And what he was saying here, holding his fist up, he was saying to the people, fight, 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 because that's what this is. This is a fight. We're in a fight, and this fight is bigger than Donald Trump. This is a fight for the soul of this country. And if this fight is lost, if the American people do not, in fact, stand up at this point and fight, I don't mean the violence, anything like that. I'm talking about standing up and getting behind a campaign that is determined to make America great again. Now, some people are saying America's never been great. I don't think that you can make that argument. The question is, what time period are we talking about? Because the greatness of America really is in America's founding. That's the greatness. What they were doing in the 18th century, as they had identified the problem, which was the locking down the country under the Articles of Confederation. They were looking at this as a problem. They had sent the delegates to the convention to fix this problem, and they'd gone there with the idea that the articles had to be remedied. But they got there, and I think even before they got there, they had made up their mind that they really are going to have to do something beyond the charge of they're going to Philadelphia. The articles were too flawed to be revised. You'd have to revise the whole document. I said last week, week before last, that one of the things I credit the framers for, and this was the greatness that I think of when I think of the nation, the greatness is that they were able to identify a problem and then import a solution to it. I mean, everybody knows the problem. The problem in the country right now that's drowning this country is the amount of debt this country is carrying. 37, now they're saying it's $37 trillion. That's a problem. And no one knows how to stop it, and nobody knows how to fix it. All they're doing is adding to it by piling on more debt. Everything they're trying creates additional problems. But the greatness of America was that when they identified the problem, which was the intent was good. They saw the intent. There was nothing wrong with the intent. The problem was how they went about the achievement of it. The intent was what James Madison was writing about. The intent was to lock power down. The articles sought to do that. And I can understand their reticence because of what they had come from under, and they did not want to have repetition of that. So I can understand that. But the greatness of the framers is that they were able to identify the problem and then find another way to do what the articles were doing without it being done by locking it down, by not creating it. In other words, what the articles did is that they simply did not have different branches of government so that it could go out of control by having multiple avenues and so on and so forth. So they only had a single branch. The idea that they're going to control government, keep it under wraps, but they could not do anything because you have to understand this about the initial problem they were facing. The initial problem is that when they signed the Treaty of Paris in 1783, if you go and look at the document, every one of those 13 original colonists signatured the document. They represented the signature of the document. They were signing on behalf of the colony that had sent them to that particular event, and they signed it as individual sovereignties. So when they created the articles, they did so with the idea that all of the sovereign states had to agree to any of the changes that were made, and that's why you don't see them adding to it, even though they understood that what they had wasn't working. particularly in 1786 with the Shays Rebellion, when Daniel Shays in Massachusetts, because of the taxation and farmers losing their farms because they could not pay the taxes. So the farmers, this really was a farmers' rebellion, a tax rebellion, which we've had a number of those in the country, haven't we? And Daniel Shays led a rebellion, and that showed the weaknesses that they were under because as the individual states, Massachusetts had the problem. The other 12 states didn't have the wherewithal to be able to respond to it. It was out there on its own. But that also showed them they all could come under the same duress that Massachusetts was under. Now they understand they got to do something different. And I give them a lot of credit for what they did here. And at that point, the country is in fact great. That when I say America, that we're going to make America great again, that's what Trump is trying to do. I don't think about the more recent time period. I think we began to get off kilter in the 18th century. I think that there was a tremendous greatness about the country for about the first 20 years of this country's independence. And I would date it from 1776, the announcement of the birth of a nation. And I'm talking about the birth of a nation that has nothing to do with this family put out, where they're going to make the birth of a nation Nat Turner. And now they're trying to make the birth of a nation Juneteenth. I'm not talking about that. The birth of a nation in 1776. And I think that the greatness, when you say make America great again, I don't know if Donald Trump is thinking of it in these terms, but I think of it in terms of the greatness of the nation for the 20-year period from 1776 until the last full year of the greatest president that this country has had. The last full year of his second term in office, and that's the great George Washington. His last full year in the office of the presidency was 1796. And from 1776 to the 20-year period, 1796, the country was on its game. And that's because of the personage of George Washington, because of the unanimity of the people behind the presidency of George Washington, in whom they had ultimate confidence. Why is that true? Because George Washington had earned it. To my multifaceted leadership, he earned it on the battlefield and the trust because George Washington wouldn't quit. And then
neither does Donald Trump.
And then that's the point. You don't quit. You get up, you pick yourself up, what's that song, and get back in the race. And that's what Washington did. That's what the framers did. They got the articles did not work. And they identified that wasn't it. There's got to be something else they can do to patch this. They want to patch the problem up, but the ones that went there, they sent their. This was out of what's that book written by? It's called The Best and the Brightest. They sent their best and the brightest to that convention. Each colony figured out who were the minds, the great minds, the intellectuals that were in those 13 colonies. And each of those colonies sent the best minds that they had.
Did you look at it? You just ever think about this? As soon as you said that, this imagery of this guy that Biden had his administration, I can't remember what title he had. He was a thin guy, bald, and he identified as being a female, and he stole somebody's luggage from an airline.
Yeah, I remember.
And then we got Rachel
oh
Levine,
my goodness.
who is supposed to be what is she? That's not the the Surgeon General, is it? Rachel Levine. But anyway,
yeah.
they got this. I mean, just look at does that look like the brightest and most
My
intelligent?
goodness. Yeah, this is what we're dealing with right now. You know, we part of the people when they were saying that there was a guy on that roof, as I was saying earlier, people were trying to point out there's a guy up there with a rifle. Well, they didn't respond to it. They didn't know. I mean, it wasn't that they were trying to set anybody up. They didn't know what to do because Cheadle was talking about they need to have this percentage of this population as part of the security team. 30% women have to be there. And I mean, just the DEI kind of thing, where you got diversity, equity, and what's that? The diversity, equity, and inclusion. You got to have everybody included. Nobody's talking about merit, the ability to do the job. You can't be playing with people's lives like that. And I was asking a lot of people, how many persons were surprised by what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania? Not it had to be Butler, Pennsylvania. How many persons were surprised if it had been any place and there had been some attempt on Trump's life? I was shocked by it, but I wasn't surprised by it. I was saying that we need security around this man because of his outsider status, and that's what they really that's really what this is about. That's really why they're making up all these stories about Donald Trump trying to keep him out of power, that he encouraged an insurrection on the 6th of January, 2021, when they knew that they cut off the last part of what that man said at that demonstration that was going on, as person going to Washington, because there's a question mark about the propriety of the election on November the 3rd, 2020. Nobody's buying. You can get 80 million votes, more 15 million votes than Barack Obama got when he ran a crusade in 2008. And there's an underling that's not running at that time because he doesn't have the persona that Barack Obama had. And the man stays in his basement the whole time and gets 80 to 82 million votes. Nobody believed that. And they went there to say that they don't believe it. That was no insurrection. They went there to stand up for the Constitution, exercising their First Amendment rights.
According to, all the people that say it's insurrection, well, think about this, people. The people who are actually was involved in that January 6th protest, they know what insurrection is. And usually an insurrection requires being very heavily armed because, the people you're meeting up with who are going to try to oppose you are very heavily armed. So, I mean, I can't accuse these people of not, many of them were military people. So I think they know how to raise I put it colloquially, I guess they know how to raise hell, right?
Yeah, Babbitt that was killed was a 14-year veteran. Well, she wasn't armed. There was nobody armed there. They didn't even have pitchforks.
So see, that's that. But see, that this thing is, you should hear some of the hateful rhetoric that I've seen. You probably have about people saying too bad. The left is always saying how we should have more gun control, and now they're pissing and moaning that the guy wasn't a better shot. I mean, okay.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, this is okay. If we were to do this to them, if we're just supposed to be, even if we say something not even as inflammatory about that, a situation that even a very less inflammatory situation would be called all kinds of names. Hater. You're a hater. What exactly are you showing? Oh, that's different though. We can hate. Yeah. We're going to show you what you should hate. You have to adopt our values.
I was not surprised at the calmness They're talking about how everybody was scanning about and thinking, yeah, they're trying to get out of the line of fire. But look how calm they were, and look at how calm things were in the aftermath of that. You think that would happen if that had been somebody on the left? They've been burning the country down.
That's right. I was going to say, yeah, that's how we protest. We maybe defriend people or unfriend people on Facebook or social media who make a joke about Trump getting shot. That's our reaction. The reason it goes to this. The left is, the story of Solomon, Solomon in the Bible, and the two women brought the child to him, and they're both saying that the child was theirs, and his solution was to say that, to order the baby to be cleaved in two, and the real mother, obviously, because he loved the child, didn't want that to happen, so she was willing to suffer a great offense to let somebody else have her child rather than see that happen. See, that's what the left is. The left is willing to let this country be divided, or just destroyed because they want their way.
Yeah. They're consciously doing this, John. This is not. I don't. That's why I don't think we could feign surprise at what this was. This was an environment that was being nurtured to create a circumstance for that. You don't think that by calling Trump Hitler and one invective aimed at this man after another, the man's a patriot. That much is clear. The man has come downstairs on the escalator from the 38th floor. His wife telling him that we have a comfortable life, and she was not stopping him. But the idea was, who needs this? They were living comfortably, but that's not Donald Trump. Trump had the view that this country has been very good to him. He's done very well. It's been very selfish in a way. Most of us would have taken the route of that. I got mine. I heard that every day when I was in school. The teachers were telling me, "I got mine, and you have yours to get." But I knew they meant that don't be in here talking and disturbing the class and things like that, but because you got to get yours. But many persons would have felt the way Melania felt, that we have a nice quality of life. Everything is going well now in our life. We're living in comfort, and we don't need this additional stuff. And people need to go and watch. I tell you, an interview you need to go and watch. Go watch that interview that Barbara Walters did with Donald Trump. A beautiful interview, starting out with Melania. Starting. I think it starts out with Donald Trump. Melania joins in later. It was a very beautiful interview. And it was clear that Donald Trump was driven by his commitment to making the country great again. It has been great, but it's been great. We can argue about, you cannot argue there's never been great. That argument doesn't fly. We can argue about when it was great. I don't think we can talk about it, the greatness, once we've gotten away from the foundation and we began to ooze from underneath the foundation gradually over time. And I think that for the 20-year period, I date the greatness of the country, that generation, that greatest generation. We've had two greatest generations, the ones in the generation, the World War II generation, that was a great generation. But the greatest generation we had were those persons that did what they did to stand up and to write that document and risk their lives when they didn't have anything to fight with, and just simply stood up and said they're not going to take it anymore.
Well, like I'd like to know this too. See, there's a difference between great and perfect. Okay, Rome was great. Ancient Greek, ancient Babylon was great.
Mhm.
They're great. Doesn't mean they're perfect. And by the standards of what would be greatness, it would be adjustable to the society of that time. So, I mean, America's always been great because it was started out with an idea of what it wanted to become. That's the most unique part about the greatness of the United States. Was it perfect? No, no. I mean, it's never been perfect. I don't know anything institution-wise that humans can create, or even the individual human to be perfect. But yeah, I think there's always a greatness about this country and other countries, other empires, which we are never supposed to be. You know.
Yeah, it's greatness. But if you notice it, then when they say great, they're always referring back to that period. They're talking about those intellectuals that were in that room and what they created. It's incredible to have created that out of whole cloth. There was no document that they were copying and then translating it from some other language into the English language or some other polity and then translated to the polity here. They were in that room starting from scratch. They'd already opted out of the Articles of Confederation. That's what the secrecy was about. They knew they were in that room doing something that had never been done before, and they knew that they had not been sent there to do that. But they knew also that it had to be done. The greatness of this country, and it will never be anything other than that which is attached to what occurred in the 18th century. If it's ever severed from that, and it is severed from that right now, severed from it, because we don't want to go and credit the framers who make all kinds of accusations against them. We don't want to go back there to the roots and celebrate the fact that those persons in that room were doing something that was unconscionably almost impossible, because you got a problem here. This document that's been created is stagnant, is immobile. It doesn't allow for the country to make the corrections. They're sent there to correct the document, to make it more palatable to the times. And they could not, if you go read the Articles of Confederation, those 13 articles, it just simply could not be done. There's no way in the world you could have corrected that document and made that document work based on the circumstance, because the circumstance had changed, and the document was incapable of being changed. The unanimity that was required, but the locking down of the power, that is necessary. You can't let power run amok. And so that was good. The question for the framers was, how are you going to throw the bathwater out, but not the baby? And they had to figure out how to do that. What they did, and I don't think the Supreme Court is admiring this enough, because if they would not be doing what they're doing right now. But what they did was find another way to lock the government, to lock power down without losing sight of what the document was intended to do. They're doing what the articles was designed to do, but they're finding a different route. I mean, all roads lead to Beijing, as they say in China. Well, there are other routes to get to how you will chain power down. Power has to be chained down. But there's another way to do it, and the way they came up with it, the genius that's in that, the greatness, was that they found the way to do it was create the three branches of government. Have a branch of government that's a legislative branch. That's the only branch they had under the articles. But then also set up the executive branch. Didn't have an executive branch under the articles. And set up a judicial branch, a referee. in the federal structure. Didn't have a judicial branch. The idea was not you didn't want to expand power. Well, power you have to, if you're going to expand power, the question is, how do you expand it? At the same time, it looks like it's a contradiction to expand power at the same time control it. And the expansion of it, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, three different branches, each one a separate sovereignty. Well, that's a problem because every corridor of power creates multiple places where power can go out of control. But here's the other part of what they did. And nobody's gonna ever convince me that this is not the greatness, the greatest of the greatness of the country, is that by creating the three branches of government, they then subsume in the separation how each of them check on the others, so that each then, being jealous within their own corridor of power, would make sure that the lines of demarcation between one branch and another would not be violated by this branch coming in and doing more than what was in fact itemized in the Constitution to it. Because in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, where you have the delegation of powers, they're actually saying what the powers are, because those powers are being delegated away from the states into that which the states created, which is the federal government. Find a document anywhere that's ever been created anywhere that does something better than this document does. The mere fact that everywhere you go, and I've been into 20 some odd countries, and I'm always, when I'm there, the first thing I want to do, I was asking a person for this when I was in Gambia this past May. I said, I want to look at your Constitution. I was asking one of the members of the government, because I've not seen Gambia's Constitution. But I've seen it in some of those other countries. I've seen the Constitution out South Africa, the Rainbow Constitution. And so the point I'm making is, wherever I've gone, I've asked for the Constitution to look it over, that was conjured up in those. Everyone is copying it. Don't they say the statement they make about imitation, the compliment is the most imitated document. I have not been anywhere I've asked to look at the Constitution where I didn't glean into it and see some examples of where they lifted out whole cloth certain things in the document. All the power, by the way, in every one of the documents thereafter separate the powers. They may not practice it, but the powers are separated. Where did they get that idea from? Didn't have to invent it, because they copied it from what had been done in this country, in Philadelphia. I'm talking about the greatness of the country, at the genesis of the country's greatness. Now, all the other stuff we can argue about that, but we cannot argue that the country's greatness is centered in the creation of the country. And there's one creation of the country, and that creation of the country is 1776. That 1619 stuff, you can take that and toss that somewhere else. And the Juneteenth thing, you can take that and take that somewhere else. That's not the founding of the country either.
Yes, I'd like to say that 1619. I mean, that was how many years? Well over, how long before we established the country with the fight against England and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, this 1619. Let's go further. Let's go further. I mean, I don't know. I think that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous date.
It's a way to disavow the greatness of the country and the country's founding. you cannot claim the country is great and not embrace what happened in that room, because that's the source of anything that was created thereafter comes out of what they did from May 25th, 1787 to September the 17th of that year. Everything that was accomplished in this country has to go back to that, because that's the root of it. If they're not done what they did there, none of these things would be going on now. None of the things that we're claiming that's great about the country, when they say great, even if they're talking about, let's say that people, this song, people around the world, they come to America. Well, yeah, they come to America, but they don't come here to deal with the restraints upon liberty that they're running from. They come into a place where the liberties are not suspended, at least in the traditions are so strong here that even though you have a government out of control, there are certain restraints that are so ingrained in the president of the country. I mean, look at the fact that nobody violated the 2-term limit of the president. George Washington stepped down voluntarily from the presidency, and no one dared. This is the framers that had done that. No one dared.
I just had a thought. Maybe the left is, how we're fighting about immigration and trying to, lower the amount of people just coming over our borders. Maybe the left is trying to actually make this a lot less attractive by making us exactly what they're leaving, so there's no need to leave where they're coming from. Maybe that's just, I'm being ironic, of course, but, that's where we're becoming more like them, the more repressive and stuff.
That's the problem that we have with persons coming in like that, untethered. We're not vetting. We're letting people in. We're not vetting these persons in. And it's one thing to bring some of your cultural isms in from you came from. That will enrich the country, but you must have a grounding point through which all of them buy into a common theme. And the glue is that which the country is based upon. If you bring them in and you don't have them grounded in what America is, and America is that which was created in the 18th century, if you don't ground them in that, then what you have here, you don't have a United States. You have a United Nations.
The way I look at it, the only thing that unites this country as a whole is a common language and the law.
Mm-hmm.
And the left has done both to make like a 2-tiered system for one group has to follow a certain amount of laws and the other one is totally disregard any of the laws. And they're allowing the languages to be, added more to it, and expectation of more and more representation in those languages. So they're basically causing the destruction of that unity we did have. Yeah.
Yeah, John, if we could go back and celebrate that, I don't think you would have had the shooting that occurred in Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't think you would have these divisions if we had respect for the grounding points of this nation. You would not be having these. These are not even debates. Debates are about policy. These are not debates where they're here talking about making things up, saying things like Donald Trump had disrespected the dead, the fallen soldiers. They know that's not true. Biden said that in that debate, in that so-called debate, that Trump had defamed the fallen heroes. The man is celebrating that. It's Biden that defamed the military by the way he came out of Afghanistan. They were already Trump had put in place the fact that we have to get out of these entanglements that had already begun. But it's going to be an orderly disengagement from Afghanistan. This fiasco where you run out, disorganized because of the DEI, people that put in positions, Miller and some of the others put in positions they're not qualified for. This is a disaster waiting to happen. It's going to bring this country down if we don't get this straight. Where are the people that are going to make the country great again? Because you need those kinds of people that made the country great at that convention. They didn't send any DEI there. That wasn't about DEI. That was about the best and the brightest being sent to Philadelphia. Every colony did that. And when those eventual 55 members, not all arriving at the same time, but when they got in that room, they were capable, given the fact, and this is what Ayn Rand was pointing out, is that these were the country's first intellectuals. And she says, and I don't have any reason to doubt it, these were the last intellectuals this country has produced. There's nobody on those college campuses right now, not Harvard, not Brown, Cornell, not Yale, not any of them can put together a collection of all those persons on these college campuses today and put them in a room and have them come up and create something on the level of what was created in the 18th century. We don't have any intellectuals on these college campuses even today that would match what they did in that room. None. No college campus, no university. And much of it is just a name now anyway. We can tell that by the fact that nobody dares pit these universities up against each other in anything that have to do with the instruction, the academics. One of them now is trying to get a football team. Unheard of in the past, but that's where we are right now. The greatness of America, you got to go back to the founding moments of this country. And I think that the loss of the greatness, quite frankly, was when they began to weasel from underneath that which restrained power so that part was taken care of and the country can do some other things under the fact that the government was in fact held in check. The laissez-faire economics that developed this country was because laissez-faire means government hands off. The 19th century and the 19th century, the Constitution drawn up in the 18th, the 19th century was a century of laissez-faire economics. The idea that government would keep its hands off. And that's exactly what Ludwig von Mises is talking about. Von Mises, the great thinker of the Austrian economic school of thought, who says that the reason why America got off to such a great start and became the economic engine it became is because in this country here, the government this country was the last country in which the government got involved in the economy last. Before that, before this inching into a government was taking more and more control over the economy, that's a Johnny-come-lately experience here. Before that, it was the idea of government hands-off, laissez-faire. That comes out of the idea of laissez-faire comes out of Louis John Colbert and Louis XVI, where John Colbert, his Treasury Secretary, was always trying to do too much for the businesses. And he thought doing things that helped the businesses out. And everybody was upset about it and so on and so forth. And he hollered out there to the people trying to help him and say, well, what do you want? What do you want me to do? And they hollered back, we want you to leave us alone. And that's where the idea of laissez-faire in the economy came from. Laissez-faire means government hands off. As long as that happened, and the best place to read about that experience, quite frankly, is Atlas Shrugged by the great Ayn Rand. Her book is talking about that. That's what that book is about. The Atlas is John Galt. This is the mind. This is the motor. The mind of the minds of the society. These are the motors of society. And the idea of what happened to who is John Galt and where did John Galt go? What John Galt did is they disappeared for a period of time so that the people that kept on talking about this and talking about that, the question would be, what would happen when the motors of society decide they're not going to take this attack and just simply exit themselves from the mainstream and then see what happens. What happened to Genesee County, the county I'm in, when General Motors pulled out of here for a lot of different reasons we've not even looked at yet. We need to go and look at what happened. 80,000 persons working at General Motors. Now it's down to 10,000. And that number continues to go down. What happened? The motors of society are not the politicians. The motors are the entrepreneurs, the ones that are creating something for people to do with their hands, creating economic enterprises, AI, stuff like that, things that making things. And now that they're not doing that, look where we are right now. Look at the debt this country is in. The greatness of America, don't get it wrong. The greatness of America goes back to the very genesis of this country. They were great. That 20-year period of time, I don't think anyone else is saying this, but go back and look at and try to, just with an idea in mind, look at the different time periods and look into that which is going on and ask yourself the question, is that the greatness at that point? Was this point greater than that point? And compare that with everything else and then locate which of the points of the country's development are the greatest points that this country has gone through in its historical chain from one period, one generation to another. I don't think there's any generation that you can put next to the first generation, the best and the brightest generation. I don't know of any generation that we produced since that time that could have done what that generation did. To me, that's the greatest generation this country has produced. And so when Donald Trump says, make America great again, I don't know why people are shooting at him, except the fact that they're not saying any of that when they talk about this man. This man is trying to make this country great. But I don't think that he has located it in his own mind of what he means by that. I think Donald Trump believes the country has always been great in all of its time periods. You cannot be a great country creating a debt of $37 trillion. You are a indebted country. You're a country that is being drowned. That this debt is drowning this country, and it's taken away. And what it's doing is that it is taking the prosperity out of the future. What they've done with the debt, quite frankly, is they buried the debt into the future. And then you got people in the present living on a credit card and passing that debt off into a time period yet to come. They found what they've done, quite frankly, and this shows you the twistedness we're dealing with, and that is to pass the taxation off so as not to have the rising up against the taxation burden, they simply are taxing the unborn, placing the debt on a generation that hasn't even got here yet, or the ones that have yet to be asked to pay the bill. And that's what they're doing. All this borrowing they're doing, they're passing that into the future, extracting the prosperity into the present so that they won't have to answer for the things they're doing. But this is not greatness. This is cowardice that's happening right now. And it's out of that all the squilling that's going on and all this blaming that's taking place. We got to get a handle, because I'm not surprised by what happened. I don't think you could say you're surprised by it. What happened in Butler, to which Donald Trump, this man could have lost his life. This man could have been killed. It's by the grace of God that Donald Trump was not standing as he normally stands, directly in front of that podium. If he had been standing there, if he had not been, if that chart had not been put over to the side, and he had been somewhat distracted, I don't say distracted, but glancing over there. If that had not happened, if he had not turned, that bullet, we would be having a different conversation today. We would not be talking about Donald Trump giving a different speech Thursday of this week, because today is the beginning of the Republican National Convention. And I can't wait to hear what Donald Trump has to say as he gives the acceptance speech as a nominee of the Republican Party on Thursday, the last day of this convention. I can't hardly wait to hear what Donald Trump has to say. This man is unusual. People are asking, well, what is the man's demeanor? We've been talking to him and trying to figure out, is he now reticent? Does he have any forbearing about having stood up? Is he now singing this war is me? I should never have engaged this. They said the man is so upbeat. And we all saw him doing this over the crowd. They had a hard time. I think it was Donald Trump that said, as they were trying to usher him out there, I think it was Donald Trump that said, "Let me get my shoe." I mean, they're trying to protect the man. Donald Trump keeps trying to rise up to show the crowd that, look, this doesn't stop him. This man is talking about, this man, they're trying to say they didn't know what the man was saying. I knew what he was saying. The man was saying, and he said it 3 times, fight, fight, fight. The man, this is not your, this is the one of the, we're trying to wake up people like Donald Trump. We have to wake the lions up. And this man's a lion. And this man had just gotten shot. You see him grabbing his ear and going down. He looks at his hand and sees the blood. Then he ducks down, trying to act like the man failed. The man didn't fall. The man went down, trying to get away from the gunfire. That guy was popping those bullets out. They say he got off about 8 to 10 rounds. But what he didn't know is that he wasn't on the only sniper that was out there. That's one thing that came out of the security of the president of at these rallies. They have snipers also, and within seconds, because this guy he didn't have that rifle. They say that Oswald was using. They say Oswald was using it in Dealey Plaza. This guy, within seconds, because he got off some shots. Some say they heard 6. One person said it might have been as many as seven shots. That went on in seconds, but they took that man down. They're not gonna put this in the paper. They blew that man's head off. They blew his head off. That's what happened to him. Those sharpshooters were there. Once they spotted where the bullets came from, they took him down. That part of the response, they had sharpshooters there. That's part of that's part of what you don't see in the security. But that breakdown that occurred where they didn't secure the perimeter and recognize the perimeter is not just where you get the fence. You can certainly check them. I've been to some of those rallies where you go inside of a enclosed conclave. I've been there. I've gone through the searching and so on and so forth. But what they did, where the fence was, that was all concealed. Beyond the fence, in that place where that guy was on that roof, that was within 150 yards. That's half of a football field, which the telescope can bring that right up on you. That's right there in average shooter's range. And I'm thankful because I think that there's no other person right now that we have on the scene that could do the job that's got to be done to fix this problem that we have in this country. And Donald Trump is the man. I'm thankful he's still here with us. I'm looking for great things in what looks like another term to duplicate what was done between the terms of Grover Cleveland, who was president as the 22nd president and the 24th president. It looks like Donald Trump's made the 60 is going to be 65 and 67, the way it looks right now. I commend the team that did their job at that point. I'm glad Donald Trump is here. I'm looking for great things that occur up to November 5th and beyond, because I think that this was the thing that sealed the election on behalf of the people of America. Okay, America, got to get out of here. We got to return the country to greatness. That's just the bottom line. And that means returning it to the framers.